Welcome to our continuing series, Interviews with Disciples and Devotees. Again, it is an honor to have with us Kittu Reddy. Namaste, Kittu. And today, in The Ideal of Human Unity by Sri Aurobindo, we begin chapter 11. What is the title?
The title is a small free unit and a large concentrated unity. When it is large, centralization of power, so concentrated unity. When it is small, less centralization of power, or very little centralization of power, and individual freedom, initiative, and cultural growth takes place more easily. So I'll read out the paragraph and then we'll go slowly. We don't want to rush.
Good.
If we consider the possibilities of a unification of the human race on political, administrative, and economic lines, we see that a certain sort of unity or first step towards it appears to be not only possible, but to be more or less urgently demanded by an underlying spirit in the need of the race and sense of need in the race. This spirit has been created, this is what I want you to follow carefully, largely by increased mutual knowledge and close communication. Increased mutual knowledge and closer communication. It certainly helps in creating the ambience for.
And this is 100 years ago. and now we have the internet and my goodness.
No, because he was always seeing the forces behind
Yes,
it. No?
of course.
So, partly by the development of wider and freer intellectual ideas and emotional sympathies in the progressive mind of the race. That had started even then, and that he saw. The sense of need is partly due to the demand for the satisfaction of these ideals and sympathies, partly to economic and other material changes, because economic and material changes are slowly making the world come closer and also greater interdependence. Therefore, we need each other. So that is why the sense of need is partly due to satisfaction of this, partly to economic and other material changes which render the results of divided national life, war, commercial rivalry, and consequent insecurity and peril to the complex and easily vulnerable modern social organization more and more irksome, both for the economic and political human, animal, and for the idealistic thinker. So you see, now if there is disruption, it disturbs everybody. Right? So people don't want war. And that is why the very fact that North Korea and South Korea have started trying to make it up because of this winter games, right? So North Korea has approached South Korea, is partly because of that also. This was an excuse, right? It's only China that needs to be. But even China will sooner or later realize that if they disturb the whole world scenario, they will not be benefited at all. So partly also the new turn is due to the desire of the successful nations to possess and enjoy and exploit the rest of the world at ease without the peril incurred by their own formidable rivalries and competitions. So that is a very selfish reason, but still that is so. And rather by some convenient understanding and compromise among themselves. The next sentence is very important. The real strength of this tendency is in its intellectual, idealistic, and emotional parts. Its economic causes are partly permanent, and therefore elements of strength and secure fulfillment, partly artificial and temporary, and therefore elements of insecurity and weakness, right? Because economic conditions keep changing according to the development in the world, right? When it is favorable, then take advantage. But then when it is not favorable, then they don't care for the unity, right? So the most important thing is the intellectual, idealistic, emotional element, which is from a higher scale. Every step we are coming back to this. An action has to be judged by the level of consciousness from which it is motivated. If it is from a spiritual level, it is independent of circumstances. If it is an intellectual level, it is already good. If it is an economic and political level, it is unreliable. It is temporary. As long as you benefit, you take advantage. When you don't, then it drops out. This is very important for you and me. I mean, in all our actions, there is a motivation. If the motivation is at the spiritual level, whatever happens, you will hold on because that is firm and eternal. It is from the intellectual level, still it is bad. If it is from the vital level, it is only when it is beneficial. Very important thing which I had to explain to one of my students this week only. Today is Wednesday. Why do you want to stay in the ashram? You're going to finish your studies. Why do you want to stay in the ashram? My advice to you is that if it is for spiritual reasons, go ahead, full steam. If it is for any other lower reasons, pause. And if it is for economic reasons, prosperity, this, that, don't come here. Right? If you come here because of security, of food, clothing, housing, right? Of course, in the back of my mind, I didn't tell him that sometimes one starts with this and then suddenly the spiritual movement happens because nature's ways are incalculable. But essentially, if you want to join this institution, it must be fundamentally for spiritual reasons.
Would you say the same for Oroville?
Absolutely the same for Oroville. And today is Wednesday, Monday, from Andhra Bhavan, and the three of us went to Oroville. We wanted to donate a fair amount of money to the Oroville Foundation for its Golden Jubilee. So we went and General Chatterjee received us, very courteous. He had an interview this morning with you. He met me. In fact, we are very good friends, and the day he retired on May 31st, 1990, June 1st, he came to my house. Next day.
And joined Oroville also.
Huh?
Same time he joined Oroville.
But he was living for some time elsewhere till his house was built. So anyway, so the real strength is in its intellectual, idealistic and emotional parts. Its economic causes are partly permanent and therefore elements of strength and secure fulfillment. And partly permanent, you will find that on the national level, geography plays a very important role. Because when you are living side by side, right? See, today I read an article that to tighten up Pakistan, because in the last few days, 4 security personnel have been killed, right? So there are 4 options that somebody has given. One is an all-out attack and finish it off in 1 week. That is risky from the international point of view. There will be a lot of pressure.
But when mother said it, they
Mother
should
said-
have done it.
Yes, I got it, the letter. And then the second one was Indus Water Treaty. Don't give them any water. Use all the water inside India. They'll be starved completely. So the other one is dialogue, which has no meaning at all. Yeah, how can you have dialogue with somebody holding a weapon always in his hands, no? So the political incentives are the baser part in the amalgam. Their presence may even vitiate the whole result and lead in the end to a necessary dissolution and reversal of whatever unity may be initially accomplished. So you see, always you have to see now, instead of using the word levels of consciousness, I am using, are you doing it by a political motive, which is vital, economic motive, which is vital, physical, intellectual motive, which is wide ideas, and spiritual motive, which is on the highest scale. That is the only secure, reliable thing. So, this, as I said, although it is being spoken of on the national level, it has to be also understood at the individual level. Still, a result of some kind is possible in the comparatively near or more distant future. We can see on what lines it is likely to work itself out, if at all. At first, by a sort of understanding and initial union for the most pressing common needs, arrangements of commerce, arrangements of peace and war, arrangements for the common arbitration of disputes, arrangements for the policing of the world. These are the what he calls the most pressing common needs, four of them, right? Commerce, arrangements of peace and war, arrangements for the common arbitration of disputes, and arrangements for the policing of the world. See, in the last few days, I don't remember which channel, News X, I think, is showing the Indian armed forces policing the world, right? That means the United Nations calls for the Indian armed forces to help them, and we have got a whole battalion of ladies, right? Very interesting. And when you listen to them, you find that they are motivated by very deep idealism. They have not just gone there to stop a battle between Congo and somebody else, right? That is also there, but they are trying to usher in larger and nobler ideas. It's a very good sign because that is very progressive. So these crude initial arrangements, once accepted, will naturally develop by the pressure of the governing idea and the inherent need into a closer unity, and even perhaps in the long end into a common supreme government, which may endure till the defects of the system established and the rise of other ideals and tendencies inconsistent with its maintenance lead either to a new radical change or to its entire dissolution. So the important thing is to take the step in the right direction. And if you come to a kind of arrangement of commerce, peace and war, arbitration, you know what is arbitration, no? When two persons quarrel, then you bring a third person, right? The three monkeys, the third monkey. So we have also seen that such a union is likely to take place upon the basis of the present world, somewhat modified by the changes that must now inevitably take place. Do you agree with this word inevitably? It may take place or it will inevitably take place.
Inevitably.
Yes, you see, again we are coming back to this. He's looking at the forces behind, right?
Yes.
And that's why he always can see well ahead as to what is likely to happen. Might not be able to say exact dates, but certain, right? That is why I relies entirely on his August 15th message. The division must and will go. The emergence of Asia is inevitable, and world unity will definitely take place. Only human imbecility and stupid selfishness can stand in the way, but nature will not allow it for too long. So we are moving towards world unity, whether we like it or not, because it is nature's destined goal. So international change, he says now we have seen that such a union is likely to take place, right? That must now inevitably take place. What are those? International changes that are likely to be adjustments rather than the introduction of a new radical principle, and social changes within the nations themselves of a much far more reaching character. So these will be the first steps. It will not be a direct radical change, it will be adjustments. Because when I have an empire and I am ruling somebody, a radical change will mean giving up the empire, or at least giving them a lot of freedom, which is what is then known by dominion status. But it was only in 1942, when the Second World War was going on, that Britain offered dominion status to us. Unfortunately, we refused. Gandhi refused. And now see the next part. But it's an internal arrangement of society and administrative mold progressing rapidly towards a rigorous state socialism and equality, by which the woman and the worker will chiefly profit. Again, see how 100 years back, at that time in America and England, there was no question of even voting for women. They were not allowed to vote.
Right. No, that's right.
See? So, women, and today it's a tremendous attack that on equality of sexes, right? And labor force. See, we wrote this book. After that came the Russian Revolution, and immediately within 2 years, ILO, International Labour Organization, demanding rights for the labor force, right? And that's a very powerful force today. And most of the strikes that take place, even in Pondicherry, I'm in direct contact with them, is because of this labor organization. Not that they do it always well, because unfortunately, when they become powerful, they take the habits of those who are in power. So that is one of the. For these are the master tendencies of this hour. Certainly, no one can confidently predict that the hour will victoriously prevail over the whole future. We know not what surprises the great human drama, what violent resurgence of the old nation idea, what collisions, failures, unexpected results in the working out of the new social tendencies, what revolt of the human spirit against a burdensome and mechanical state collectivism, what growth and power perhaps of a gospel of philosophical anarchism, mission to reassert man's ineradicable yearning for individual liberty and free self fulfillment. What unforeseen religious and spiritual revolutions may not intervene in the very course of this present movement of mankind and divert it to quite another denouement. See, all these things have happened. See, for example, what collisions? Second World War was a huge collision. So he almost forecast the Second World War and the First World War.
30 years before the Second World War.
22 years before the Second World War.
22.
See, So these collisions, failures, unexpected results in the working out of the new social tendencies, the revolt against a burdensome mechanical state collectivism. You are from Russia, both of you?
Romania.
Huh? Or
Romania.
Have you had the experience of state collectivism? State dominating and controlling everything?
I'm from the States, United States.
The communist revolution in 89. So,
What did you say?
Communist Revolution, 89.
but I was 1 year old.
So there was state control.
Yes.
Is it still there?
No.
It is gone.
Yes.
So inevitably, when there is a state control and collectivism carried beyond a certain point, there is bound to be a reaction. And that reaction will lead to either a revolution or a change in thought. It was by revolution or change of thought?
Could be both in the same time.
Yes, in fact, it will be both. The change of thought ushers in a revolution, and the revolution says that now we have to adjust, right? The human mind has not yet reached that illumination or that sure science by which it can forecast securely even its tomorrow. I'm always reminded of Sri Aurobindo's little sentence in Tales of Prison Life. He says, as the poet has said rightly to suffering humankind, that God has given him two aids: the complete darkness of the future and a blind hope as a consolation. So nobody knows whether tomorrow what will happen, right? But we have a blind hope to which we are clinging, right? Blind because we have not yet got the vision, and therefore we cannot predict even securely even what will happen tomorrow.
But with the advent of the supramental descent,
Yes, if you can somehow contact that, then you have got the vision. But if you are not in that level, or if you are not open to that, I don't expect us to go to the level of the supermind. Some kind of perception, feeling, well, then you might be able to predict the future. But for the average man, I don't want to give names, and it's happening most unexpectedly. A 60-year-old man died. Bharati Patel has put that whole thing there. Right? And,
I saw it.
Huh?
I saw it.
You see how, I know the family, shaken completely. Because they had plans. See, we are planning for something, and tomorrow it's all over, crashed. So we have not yet been able to. Right? There are some where you know that either because of physical ill health that the end is coming. So you are prepared psychologically. There are some who are psychologically preparing themselves to go on and inform their very close friends. Still there is a preparation, right? But when there is no preparation whatsoever, right? So it is so difficult. But as you said, to those who have some contact with that higher spiritual force, right, there is a possibility of saying certain things. And for those who have studied Sri Aurobindo and read Sri Aurobindo, a few things can be said categorically. One is that world unity will take place. One is India's resurgence. These two you can say without any hesitation. The third one also will be, as he has put in his dream, Asia's resurgence. And the fourth one, which is I think happening very powerfully today in the West, the resurgence of spirituality. Today, through the medium of yoga, June 21st, right? They have gone beyond the outer Hatha Yoga into deeper things. And General Chatterjee, whom you met this morning, when we went and offered the money to the Auroville Foundation, they asked me that for what would you like it to be used? For housing, for this, for that, for that. So I said, look, I don't think it is fair to ask me that question because I don't know your needs. It is for you to decide. So General Chatterjee said and requested Srinivas Murthy that on 21st June, International Yoga Day, let us go to all the villages surrounding us with whom our relationship is very uneasy. They're having conflicts, race superiority, and many things are there. So he said, if you go and present this yoga thing, establish a contact, then gradually present to them Mother's Dream in Tamil. They have translated it into almost 14 languages. So we got copies for in Bengali, in Tamil, in Telugu, in English, in French. I got one in Spanish because somebody wanted it, right? So now this is the way by which you have to gradually move. So I can forecast for certain that Auroville is going to succeed, right? That the world unity will take place. That Asia will rise. China can stop for some time, but it will not. And ultimately India will be united. That means the subcontinent will become a confederation. But short of that, and that is because I am following Sri Aurobindo. But I can't tell this in the public sphere. It is not acceptable. So let us suppose, we'll do one more paragraph. Let us suppose, however, that no such unexpected factor intervenes. The political unity of mankind of a sort may then be realized. The question still remains whether it is desirable that it should be realized thus and now, and if so, under what circumstances, with what necessary conditions, in the absence of which the result gained can only be temporary, as were former partial unifications of mankind. And first, let us remember at what cost humanity has gained the larger unities it has already achieved in the past. So, when he is speaking of the larger unities, there was no continental unity, there was empires. And empires only empowered the rulers, but took away the individual freedom and growth of those who were being ruled, right? So we have to go back and remember at what cost humanity has gained the larger unities it has achieved in the past. The immediate past has actually created for us the nation, the natural, homogeneous empire of nations kin in race and culture, or united by geographical necessity and mutual attractions, and the artificial heterogeneous empire secured by conquest, maintained by force, by yoke of law, by commercial and military colonization, but not yet welded into true psychological unities. So the British Empire was secured by conquest, maintained by force, by yoke of law, by commercial and military colonization. The Mauryan Empire had a more psychological, because it was really the confederation of India, what is now known as India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, right? And Bhutan, all these have to. So there was a stronger psychological element in this. Might be if you take Great Britain and not England, Great Britain incorporated Wales, Scotland, and successfully. Today the Welsh, despite demanding a little autonomy, don't want to move out of. The Scots also don't want to move out, although they are putting some pressure. Ireland was a failure. Southern Ireland broke off, Northern Ireland got merged, right? So you see now, that is the difference between an artificial empire based on conquest and imposition of force, and the other one is more on the cultural, psychological level, and that brings some kind of unity, right? So each of these principles of aggregation has given some actual gain or some possibility of progress to mankind at large. So even this artificial empire has given some gain. I will definitely say that despite all the cruelty and barbarism that the British inflicted on India, India gained in a certain way, in certain definite areas, by being ruled by the British. Right? So, I mean, everything that happens in the world, ultimately, if you know how to use it well, can be beneficial to you.
In Savitri, he writes, "Only for good the secret will can work."
So, although it looks very unpleasant at a time, have a little patience, learn to look a little further. Probably you will find that it was needed, there was a purpose, and the blow was a springboard. And this is very important in human life, individual life, because you will never get what you want. Sometimes the most unpleasant circumstances take place, but then if you know how to use them, you can bounce up. Today I was reading, before coming, the 1962 war was a tremendous help for India, because Nehru had believed in India, China, Hindi, Chini, Bhai Bhai, Panchashil, right? He did not realize that the Chinese were plotting to ultimately annex India, right?
Yes.
And then they attacked India. And then there was a war in which we were absolutely miserably shattered. Nehru was a man of peace, or at least tried to show that he was a man of peace. He gave no importance to the army. The shock immediately gave an awakening that no country is safe unless it is strong. You need not use that strength to attack, but it is a deterrent. Right? If you are weak, you can write it down that somebody will take advantage of you. So, nuclear weapons are unfortunately necessary because human beings are still aggressive. But if you are strong, then they will think 50 times before attacking you. But if you can change the psychology, then all nuclear weapons can be destroyed and nuclear energy can be used only for positive gains. Right? So, temporary disadvantages or inflicted some wound on the complete human being. But it has also brought some advantages. So I think we'll stop here because there might be some questions. I have to go back and give an interview to Namita on the school.
Oh,
Because I came here before the school was started, no? She wants to know something.
I have to meet her also.
Huh?
I have to meet her also. Any questions?
Anamika, anything? Now you are free to ask. You can without hesitation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know. Appreciate that.
Just a bit about China and gross national product.
What?
The gross national product of China, the imports into the US, which is changing the financial balance of both countries.
Absolutely. And they are very shrewd. They are not using it only by war and aggressive methods. Aggressive economic methods, right? I think I told you last time in Sierra Leone, one of our boys is there, right? And he has settled down there for 7 years at 8 years. Every 3 months he imports or he exports from India 400 youngsters whom he trains thoroughly as to how to behave and how to. They have come over to African countries where the Americans and the Chinese are already there. But after the Indians have come, the Sierra Leone's people, they are more attracted towards the Indians because they have been taught that you must be participatory, it is their interest that you are looking into, not your interest. The Americans and the Chinese have come essentially for business, where they can make the most and control. So he says that I'm so thrilled that they all come to us. So 400 every 3 months, every year 1200 people settling down there for 3 years, 4 years, creating an atmosphere. Then you can spread into Africa. Because Africa is it needs a lot of help. It has enormous resources and it can be a wonderful battlefield for the big powers who want to control all of them. Right? But if somebody else comes there not with the idea of dominating, but of helping them to help themselves, then they will be. And that is exactly what is happening in Sierra Leone. Anything, Anmol?
No question, but since you were mentioning that why the India was conquered, so in the synthesis he has, in one sentence he has explained that in the divine providence, the country of the yogins and sannyasis has been forced into a strict and imperative contact with the very element it had rejected, the element of the progressive mind. He said that for the last 1,000 years and more, India was divided into either the spiritual side or the purely material side. But the progressive mind was excluded. So the Europe had to invade us for the progressive mind.
Absolutely. Because the mental development, which had gone to sleep, which was there early, gone to sleep completely, was given a kick by the European contact, by the Western contact. Because you cannot deny that the West has progressed enormously in the mental field. Gigantic contribution. And now we have understood. We are picking up the technologies, we are moving forward, right?
Thank you, Kittu.